This week on Court Junkie. On September 22nd, 2020, 54-year-old Jason Cleereman went to a bar with his wife, Evangelina, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Evangelina was the driver later that night, around 7 p.m. as they drove home. Jason was in the passenger seat. It was a beautiful night outside, and Jason had his window down. Meanwhile, 32-year-old Theodore Edgecomb was also out, enjoying his night. He was riding his bike, running some errands.
These two individuals are heading towards each other on Brady Street.
Theodore was walking his bike on the north side of Brady Street, heading eastbound. He then hopped on his bike and went into the street. Evangelina swerved to avoid hitting him. Jason swore through the open window.
He swears. He says something along the lines of fucking asshole. Something along those lines.
The Cleeremans continued driving westward. They eventually got to the intersection of Holton and Brady Streets and stopped at the red light. There was a truck in front of them. As they were waiting for the light to change, Theodore rode up on his bike. There was some sort of verbal interaction between Theodore and Jason through Jason's open window. And then Theodore punched him. Jason's glasses went flying. There was blood on the window and the door. Theodore, still on his bike, rode off. According to surveillance cameras, Jason began to get out of the car, but then got back in. Theodore turned the corner and hopped off his bike to walk it down a set of stairs that he had originally come from. Evangelina turned the corner too. She pulled the car over, and Jason got out. He jogged towards Theodore, who was by the stairs.
Some witnesses say that he got into a boxing stance. Other witnesses describe it as a confrontation. He was getting ready to confront the defendant, the man who had just pulled up on a bike, punched him in the face. Mr. Cleereman has no weapon in his hands. And he's got a knife in his pocket, but there's nothing in his hands. And the defendant pulls out his 9mm handgun. And he raises it. And he shoots the victim in the face.
The bullet struck Jason above his left eyebrow.
The firearm is so close that there's actually stippling and burned particles on the victim's face.
A bystander called 911.
And Humboldt, Brady and Holton. Okay. Brady and Holton, he got shot in the head.
Jason immediately died. The case would later be prosecuted in court in January 2022. Assistant District Attorney Grant Hubner told the jury that after the shooting, Theodore either stepped over Jason's body or walked by him and went down the stairs. He walks right by this man and never checks on him, he said. He told them that Theodore never gave Jason any kind of warning, that he just pulled out his gun, shot him in the face, and then left. He said Theodore went home, put his bike in the basement, a place where he normally doesn't keep it, and then walked out. He never called 911. And then Theodore Edgecomb wasn't seen again for months. And the gun? We don't know where it is, Hubner told the jury.
Ladies and gentlemen, over the next couple days, we're going to walk you through this case. We're going to walk you through everything that has happened, the good and the bad. A horrible, senseless incident that begins with a swear word and is escalated to a punch and it is ended with a bullet into the brain.
Theodore's attorney, B. Ivory Lamar, started his opening statements by raising his hand and asking the jurors if they saw it.
Do you see my whole hand? Or do you only see the side that I'm showing to you? For over almost 1.5 years, there's only been one side of this story that has been advanced by the government, by the media. But today, members of the jury, this week, you will now hear the other side of the story.
He said many victims in the case have given interviews since it happened, but that there's one victim who hasn't. And that's Theodore Edgecomb, he said, promising the jury that they would finally hear from him. He conceded that Theodore did punch Jason, but said there was more to it than that. He also conceded that Theodore never turned himself in and wasn't apprehended until almost 6 months later. The state will try to say it was because of a consciousness of guilt, he said, but the evidence will show otherwise. He told them that the state has shown Jason and his wife in the best light. But, he said, there's another side. Welcome to the dark side.
Welcome to the side where a woman who is married to her husband for over 25 years, where she sees her husband laying on the ground, never tries to save his life, never tries to apply pressure to stop any bleeding. The evidence is going to show in this case she never administered CPR. She never took one physical act whatsoever to try to save the man she claims and purports to love. The evidence is going to show in this case that the same woman, the same wife, never even called 911 to try to save her husband's life. That's what the evidence is going to show.
In today's episode, you're going to hear a trial that includes a defense team that is relentless in their attempts to cast reasonable doubt to the jury. You'll hear all sorts of questionable, sometimes even confusing testimony from the state's own witnesses.
Now, Mr. Cameron, I noticed that you're in an orange jumpsuit today.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
Terrible. I shouldn't be in this suit at all.
Will the defense strategy work? You'll also hear from a very, let's say, uncooperative defendant during cross-examination.
So the only person that knows where you ditched this weapon that shot Jason Cleereman in the face is you.
I reacted to protect myself from being harmed.
I get it, sir. The only person that knows where the gun is you. Isn't that correct?
Can you repeat that?
At the end of it all, you might be wondering, just what is the jury going to do with a case like this? This is Jillian, and in partnership with Law&Crime, you are listening to Court Junkie, episode 196.